Greetings, everybody. Keith here. Hoping everybody's having a good day, enjoying life, living life, and loving life. Want to remind everybody, hit that like, share, and subscribe button. There's a PayPal link down there for anybody who wants to share some love. And, of course, the StreamYard link is there for anybody who wants to join the panel. Of course, we're going to go over some more of the insanity again tonight. We've got Copalooza III. Had an issue with the second one with video delay and stuff, so coming back to do some more of those videos that I had lined up. And what we're going to start out with, before we get into the police videos, see if I can find it here. Where is it? Let's see here. What is it? I know you're there somewhere. Hold on, folks. Hold on. There it is. Okay.
During the April 1775 battles of Lexington and Concord, a militiaman named Samuel Whittemore rose from behind a stone wall and fired his musket at a British column, killing a soldier. He then drew 2 pistols, killing a second soldier and mortally wounding a third. When the soldiers converged on him, he drew a sword. He was shot in the face, clubbed over the head with a musket, and bayoneted several times. It was a brave stand for Whittemore, notable because at the age of 78, he was the oldest known colonial combatant in the American Revolutionary War. Militiamen who had witnessed his brave last stand came to collect his broken body, and they were stunned to find that not only was Samuel Whittemore not dead, but he was attempting to load his musket to take another shot. They carried him to the nearby Cooper Tavern, where a doctor was treating the injured, and the doctor confirmed what they already knew. The wounds were surely mortal, but he was bandaged anyway. They sent the aged patriot home to die surrounded by his family, and that he did 18 years later in 1793 at the
18 years.
The age of 96.
Interesting. I just wanted to bring that up because I think in relations to this insanity, we've become a immoral society with emasculated women and effeminated men. And we have this military system and this insurance system and employment system based on retirement ages and stuff. And that is just a perception of commercial value. Whereas one in the value of the reality of life, there's a different standard. And I think we need to get back to that. So I hope you enjoyed that one. So let's get into the first one. And we're going to start out with a man who of course, did some atrocious things to a 3-year-old girl and killed her as well, and how he dies in prison. This is society, again, when it comes to the reality of the standards of life. There's a difference than there is in a commercial world. So you can put a man in prison in that commercial world for all of those horrendous crimes. But in reality, life makes its balance, no matter where you put them. This is in the opposing reality. I urge everybody to understand where you're at in this world, because we live in this world but are not of this world. So therefore, in this material existence and the standards of life, I hope you stand up to a greater moral standard as you live life out here in every sense, because that's what we really need to get back to.
Brand new at 5, Rensselaer police say they are not surprised that Robert Fisher died at the Elmira Correctional Facility this week.
That breaking update was first on 13 last night. Fisher only spent a few weeks behind bars after he was just convicted of murdering and raping little Josephina Cunningham. She was just 3 years old.
News Channel 13's Tessa Ventulin is now here live with us to share what police told her today. Tessa.
Hi, Rachel and Steve. Well, the Rensselaer police chief says they were informed about Fisher's death, but they're in the dark when it comes to how Fisher died. That's being investigated by the Department of Corrections and Community Services. Police Chief Warren Famigletti says it's a difficult situation for everybody involved because of the trauma this horrific death has for the family and the investigators who worked closely on this case. Hearing about Fisher's death brings that trauma back for so many. Fisher's death comes 6 weeks after he was just sentenced to 20 years to life in
6 weeks. 6 weeks in is all he lasted. See, when we have this criminal justice system that says justice is not for sale, delay, or denial, they mirror that because society says so. So again, no matter what the commercial system does, and you have greater consequences that society will take out upon you, no matter where you end up. If you think you're protected, that long arm of God reaches out through righteousness, even in prisons. Even in the prisons, that righteousness will reach out. Not all those people in that prison are in there for unrighteous crimes. A large majority of them are in there simply because of the commercial contracts. They volunteered without knowing it. So again, understand the lunacy and the inherent insanity that goes on.
prison for Josephina Cunningham's death. He pled guilty to raping and killing little Josephina here on your screen in Rensselaer in July 2023. The details of Josephina's attack are horrific. In court, we learned Fisher drugged Josephina before raping her, then tried to cover it up, and what he'd done by taking Clorox wipes and scrubbing her face. He scrubbed her face so hard that he burned the pigment right off her face. Chief Famigletti says he wants to make sure everyone knows of the terrible things Fisher did to Josephina.
Did you expect this death to come?
We didn't not expect it, right? It's a horrific crime. Everybody knows what he did. So we didn't.
Did you see the look on his face when he said that? He did it with a smile. See, these people get off on things like that. But remember, in order for them to get off on a death like this, the event that occurs before to put them in that place must first occur. This is the insanity of the mentality of people like this. Getting out here in this, I don't take it funny at all. It's not comedic at all. This guy has an internal pleasure. That's the sick part.
Expect him to have a smooth time in prison.
Coming up live at 6 o'clock, the conversation.
So again, it doesn't matter what the commercial standard values are when it comes to the moral, objective, and inherent intuitive truths about life. You can't avoid consequences. They're going to hit you sooner or later. And sometimes, because the consequences have such a greater standard in that moral aspect of life, they will hit sooner, whether you think they are or not. So let's take a look at the next one. In a false arrest, in a case of mistaken identity, and how these people go forward and assert. And this is why I go on that identification all the time. They can't identify you. And that's what they did in this. And what I want to point out about this next video is this is a cold case type situation where the last photo they had of her was like 20 years prior. And so now they've taken and used some kind of imagination, whether it be AI generated or not, and assumed that this woman was the woman from 20 years prior, and used that as the foundation to violate her rights without any further investigation, which would have been easily done through the Postal Service. Hey, we need to check this the identification out of this woman that's got a property under this address, and we need to intercept her mail. We need to check the identification of that person that's receiving mail at that home. They have no qualms about assuming shit. This is why it's so important for you to, like I've said many times, don't believe me, don't believe the neighbor, don't believe the government, for crying out loud. Don't believe your mother. Do your research so you know. Stop believing anyone, even yourself. If you go forward on things believing in blind faith, then you're going about things wrong. That's not what faith is about. Faith is about knowing intuitively that certain things are supposed to be the way they are. And as long as you cooperate with that fundamental principle, you're going to be okay.
Federal agents falsely arrested a 66-year-old Valley woman at gunpoint. The ABC 15 investigators are first to have exclusive new video of the shocking arrest. We broke the story and now have the footage, prompting more questions about this wild case of mistaken identity.
Please don't move! It took the federal government more than 6 months to publicly release this dramatic video. Hands up! Hands up! Revealing visuals highlighting a significant error by U.S. Marshals. Turn around. And it also proves what 66-year-old Penny McCarthy knew all along.
Ever since this happened, sorry, I am so freaking disappointed in my government. It's not funny.
Turn away from the sound of my voice.
Back to blue until it happens to you. We hear this all the time. Again, this is why it's imperative that we have to get the message out that you need to really start thinking about what's going on in this life. We have to stop blindly having faith in the government. And I speak on this all the time. The only way that you can properly monitor the government is to know what the government's supposed to do. You have to educate yourself so you can hold the proper oversight. Otherwise, you go around like this woman, blindly believing that the government is working for you until they come for you. Then you realize it's not working for you. They are willing to violate your rights, even as a 66-year-old woman that evidently looks like she's leading a good life and has good things. It's sickening that we have people in these authoritative positions that think they can just blindly go around assuming this shit without doing their proper job and proving their competence of a proper investigation.
This exclusive new police body camera footage captures the moment 6 U.S. Marshals armed with rifles wrongfully arrested Penny outside her Phoenix home. You have an arrest warrant. Turn away from the sound of my voice. Yes, for you. Who am I? Turn away. Turn around and discuss.
We have an arrest warrant for you. You do? For me? Yes, you. Well, who am I? The first question, who is she? They have negated to identify. Negated to identify, and evidently they have zero evidence of the crime that they think she commits, because they haven't identified her. Therefore, the evidence, no matter how much it is, does not apply.
Turn away, you're gonna get hit. The video clearly shows Penny had no idea why federal agents were there or how they could have a warrant for her.
Do you know who I am? Yes. They said yes, they know who she is. That's a lie. They have never identified her.
Arrest.
I truly, truly believed I was being kidnapped.
Do you want to confirm who I am?
ABC 15 fought for 6 months to obtain these videos through a federal public records request. The first time we're seeing exactly
Yes, for you. Who am I? And then total failure to follow up procedurally and do so. Instead, they give unlawful orders and violate her rights.
what led to Penny's arrest.
Turn around and face away from me.
And it all happened in less than 2 minutes.
Can you prove you're the police?
Ma'am, you see that we're the police.
Can you prove who you are? Ma'am, you can see we're the police. No, I can't. You are supposed to identify. What don't you people get?
How do I see that?
Ma'am, we're gonna get, you turn around and
What was it like watching this video?
It just makes me more angry than before.
Penny's story started with an email. No one believed her until ABC 15 listened to what happened, and we uncovered serious failures by the federal government.
I'd like to know why this person was arrested as Ms. Rozak.
Just days after our investigation aired, and in direct response to our reporting, prosecutors dropped the case against Penny, and the federal government admitted it was wrong. Penny never should have been arrested.
I'm not Carol Ann Rozak. I've never been Carol Ann Rozak.
She was not this woman.
She was not this woman. Department of Justice, United States Marshals, since 1789, Justice Integrity Service.
Carol Ann Rozak, not the Oklahoma fugitive federal agents thought she was, not the person seen in this mugshot from 20 years ago who was wanted.
20 years ago. That mugshot 20 years ago led to a 66-year-old woman that they have no idea who it is, but they assume it's her because she looks familiar. How many people in this world, how many women in this world, or guys even in this world that look like this or could look like this if it was 20 years earlier? And so now they've gone through changes that might look familiar. This is the problem with identifications. Everything is an assumption. The legal name even is a hearsay.
Wanted on a parole violation for nonviolent crimes.
What do you see on these videos?
I see abuse of power, period.
This brings us back to the body camera footage.
Absolutely.
And Penny's crucial question.
Do you want to confirm who I am?
put your hands behind your back. Put your hands behind your back. We'll discuss this later.
Never discussed it.
We'll discuss this later. No, we need to discuss it now because it's pertinent to your ability to prove your competence in doing what you're doing now to show that you are not asserting false authority, unlawful orders, etc. That is supposed to have been determined now. This is the RAS. Reasonable articulable suspicion so that you can identify. You haven't gone through that process yet. You're assuming the identification, and now, since you've done that, you're violating rights.
Later.
Stop moving and stop looking back. Stop looking back.
Can you prove you're the police?
Ma'am, you see that we're the police.
Can you prove that you're the police? Ma'am, you see that we're the police. No, I do not, because just like this woman's going to say, I'm sure somewhere, that's not what my police would do. Again, this goes to your integrity and your ability to have that oversight. That means you have to have the knowledge. And intuitively, the knowledge says, my police wouldn't do this. What about yours? See, that's what makes them not my police. I would never hire somebody that does this. I would never hire young people like this. I wouldn't hire women to go out in the streets and do this. Women have a place in the environment, but it certainly isn't out there wearing armor and weaponry. Again, you can call me a misogynist all you want. I don't give a fuck.
How do I see that?
I don't know you're anybody. This is not my world. This does not happen to me.
If you turn around again, you're going to get taped. You understand me?
They did nothing but treat me like crap and lie to me.
Despite
Yeah, that's not what we believe that the police is supposed to be doing. And yet again, everybody wants to back the blue until it happens to you. That's why people like myself, 94 cases, are screaming out about it.
Penny insisting she could prove who she was, it's not until Penny is in handcuffs, U.S. Marshals finally tell her who they think they're arresting.
Carol Rozak. That's not who I am.
Penny McCarthy.
Yes. Yes. But I've never been Carol Rozak. I can prove who I am.
Okay. How would you describe this case?
A textbook.
I can prove who I am. Do you see what they did, though? Despite denying that she was this Carol Rozak girl and saying that she could prove she is, okay, and then just turned her and walked her off, still in cuffs. It doesn't faze them. They are so sure that they are right, and that if they're wrong, somebody else will cover their ass. I'm telling you, it's time to start learning how to cover your own ass.
Book example of federal agencies not doing what they're supposed to be doing.
Josh Colstrud is a criminal defense attorney with years of experience as a federal prosecutor for the U.S. Attorney's Office.
This case is concerning because of the manner in which Miss McCarthy was arrested.
We asked him to review the videos and evidence in Penny's case.
Your reaction?
It is stunning to watch, and it's scary that this can happen in America.
Colstrud believes the videos show Phoenix U.S. Marshals
No, it's been scary for a long time, and it's becoming normal. This kind of shit is what is being normalized.
used excessive force.
This was an aggressive arrest, and it's unreasonable.
Greetings, John. How you doing tonight, brother? Thanks for joining.
Hello, Brother Keith. How you doing?
Good, good.
Yeah, you're doing good?
Yep.
Yeah.
Still enjoying some of that warm weather. We're sitting at 57 degrees still at 6:30 at night. Middle of Iowa. Can't complain about it.
Take it, take it.
Yep, yep.
Yeah, I just thought the definition of a license meant only if I go on someone else's property.
Yeah.
I don't think I needed one to move a car or to move a carriage. I never saw that one in the book.
Yeah, well, and this one here wasn't even that. It was just merely a misidentification that, which of course they use through that interstate identification index, which is the state ID or driver's license, connected to the voter registration and the indemnity and all that. That's how they bond you, is that state resident identification. Well, if that's what you're required to bond things by, then you would have to have that identification solid in fact first. And that's why they have that reasonable articulable suspicion and the Terry stop and all that kind of shit. You know, there's a reason for it. They go around bonding shit without having the proper identification. What they're doing is issuing false security instruments.
The perils of corporate slavery.
Yep.
I'm telling you, tough.
Reasonable on so many levels.
He also calls into question how federal agents made this arrest before fully verifying Penny's identity.
In this,
How federal agents made this arrest before fully identifying the woman.
case, they didn't do that. We have to hold these agencies and the agents accountable.
The only public accountability we do have regarding the clear disconnect between Penny and Carol comes from this court audio recording a day after she's detained, when the judge also questions why Penny was arrested.
But it is strictly based upon information that they had, Facebook postings.
Facebook postings and what they claim to be aliases. So they took a Facebook posting and said, hey, this woman looks familiar, looks like her. She's using this alias.
That led and some aliases.
Evidence that wasn't sufficient to go forward with a hearing. A full fingerprint analysis would confirm Penny's prints didn't match, proving U.S. Marshals arrested the wrong person.
Yeah. The U.S. Marshals are above the law. That's what it says to me. And
that's the FBI in there with that fingerprint thing. And that's what I was saying with the Interstate Identification Index. That is a correlating record to the FBI fingerprint and identification files. Greetings, Fallen. How you doing tonight, brother?
Doing good, doing good.
Good to see you again.
I know, it's good to be back.
Yeah. So what do you think about...
I have a question about that filing or doing whatever, the false bond or what you were talking about just a minute ago?
Yeah.
Securities?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, but how do you, like, when you're saying you have to know, like, if I knew that or if you knew that, how would you approach that situation if you were that 66-year-old person and them, like, doing that, like saying, don't even look at us or we're going to, like, electrocute you?
Yeah, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to insist that they identify me accordingly because they haven't done so yet. That's the whole foundation here, as I've been pointing out, and that's what the federal investigator there pointed out. That's what the news anchors pointed out. It's that intuitive knowledge that, hey, there's got to be something wrong here. There's something else that's already set in law that you're supposed to do as investigators to make sure that you don't make false accusations like this that lead to that are cause of violating people's rights. So we've got to inherently think about that, and that's again goes back to our own oversight. We cannot allow this, and the only reason it does happen is because good men don't do anything about it. The thing you do about it again is take upon the benefit, accept the offer of knowledge. Greetings, Brother Russ. How you doing tonight?
Good. Hope all is well.
Yep. We're doing the same old. You been watching this one here?
No, I have
This
not.
one here, they pulled up on this lady. She's 66 years old. She was out in her driveway, and they'd evidently been watching some Facebook postings, and they thought she looked familiar. So they went through her files and found a picture from 20 years ago. It says, hey, it's her from 20 years ago. And said, okay, well, she's going by this on Facebook. That's an alias, and started doing their little insane investigation without any kind of proper authority to begin with. They had no reason to be checking out that post for investigative purposes. There was no suspicion of any crime. There was just somebody said it looks like familiar, So they misidentified her through an assumption, never validated it through proper investigation, went and arrested her, and then found out it's not the same woman. After arresting her and putting her through intake and everything for fingerprint filing and all that. 66 years old. And she said she couldn't believe that her government would do this to her. Classic. Back the blue until they come to you. It's just so sad.
But you know the sad part about it though, Keith, is in reality, it's not really a government. It's a man or a woman doing that.
Well, yeah, and that's why I'm talking about the government and our oversight. We wouldn't put men and women in those offices and agencies that would do that if we had the proper oversight. We wouldn't. We'd know the people that we can hold to their honor.
Absolutely. Am I lagging?
I think you are. If you want to duck out and come back in, I'm here.
I'll be right back.
Yep.
United States government allows that to happen.
No. It's not the United States government that allows that to happen. Again, it's our responsibility. If you want to call it our government, then you have to take those ownership responsibilities. And again, you can call me sovereign citizen all you want. According to them, a sovereign citizen is somebody that doesn't recognize the government. I do recognize the government. I recognize the government in its forms, and I know it better than most of the people in the government. Most of the people in the government know it for its investment form through life insurance policies and insider trading and shit like that. They don't know it for the actual paperwork and the routing and all the securities and exactly how they work. Their only interest is in the profitability of the investments. So they specialize in those investments. You have to understand you're that investment.
It's a hell of a system.
We are committed to getting answers for Penny. We asked U.S. Marshals multiple times for their perspective on the video you just watched, but the agency did not respond by our deadline. In a previous statement, the U.S. Marshals said it was conducting a thorough review of the actions taken by Deputy U.S. Marshals, but the federal government has yet to provide an update on that review. We will keep asking questions. I'm investigator Jennifer Copalooza, ABC 15, Arizona.
And like they said earlier in the video, they talked about they couldn't admit nor deny something. And that's basically what they do in these kind of situations. They neither admit nor deny. And in most cases, it'll be a non-response. Pathetic. Cowardly runners. Now, the next one is about a Florida teen, another one where she was abused sexually and physically, I imagine, and by a foster uncle who adopted her, an uncle who fostered and adopted her, it's a tough situation where people in this kind of situation are criminalized. Like the lady we saw before, she was innocent of anything, and they came over and tried to criminalize her without doing a proper investigation. This one here is about a gal that was criminalized and forced to do her own investigation to prove it as a fuck you to the police. So let's watch this one. Again, the heroism of being able to stand up for the moral standards of the reality of life and not being cowards and running.
We're told if you're a victim of a crime to go to the police and report it. But what happens when they don't believe you? From the Center for Investigative Reporting, Rachel De Leon has the story of how far one child had to go to prove her innocence.
Child. Not a 66-year-old woman that had a good life behind her, a good solid education, kind of knew how things went and everything. But a child that has zero competence in this adult type world. But yet she had more competence than every other adult in her life. That's true heroism.
And a word of caution, this story involves details of child sexual abuse.
In the Fastest growing county in America, Polk County, Florida, its longest serving sheriff, Grady Judd, has a large media presence and delivers unapologetic, tough on crime messages like this one about an armed man involved in a car chase.
And he chose to die in a gunfight, we accommodated him. He said he wanted to go to heaven. We made the arrangements for him.
Running this fall for his 6th term in office, he's a popular sheriff, once invited to the White House by then-President Donald Trump to discuss issues facing sheriffs, and later asked to join a federal council overseeing all programs related to missing and exploited children. He's made it his
department's prerogative, priority. And if you watch this guy on YouTube, he's got his own YouTube channel down there for Polk County, and they're bringing in hundreds. This is the guy that you see with Disneyland. Bringing in all those traffickers, and every once in a while they snatch one from Disneyland repeatedly.
After child predators.
We'll go to the ends of the earth to arrest you if you victimize children.
Why punish me? What did I do for you to punish me?
But Taylor Cadle's extraordinary case raises questions about how, despite Sheriff Judd's tough-on-crime rhetoric, his department treated a child victim as a criminal.
Nothing that I did was I in the wrong. At all.
Taylor had a traumatic childhood. The state took her away from her birth mother when she was 7 due to violence and neglect at home. After a year and a half in foster care, she was adopted by her great-uncle, Henry Cadle, and his wife. But within months, she says he began sexually abusing her.
I kept it secret because going through foster care, it was already so much.
That didn't take long, huh? So that kind of sets in my mind that it was something that was predetermined. He was using the situation to take advantage of it. And these people in foster care, the foster care system, the Department of Human Services, they give not one fuck. On their end, it's all the logistics, the record keeping and what the record says. Other than that, they don't give one fuck. Ask me. I know. I was in it for 5 years. And then I was adopted. And guess what? That didn't work out too fucking well either.
Much of a traumatic experience that I was scared to go back.
Over the next 3 years, she says Henry Cadle used long car rides to abuse her off this road. One day in 2016, Taylor disclosed the abuse to an adult member of her church, which launched an investigation by multiple agencies.
Okay, well, how old are you?
Almost 13. I'll be 13 in October.
That week, Taylor was asked to recount what happened to her several times. In a recorded interview with a child welfare worker, she went into detail, hoping she'd be believed.
Just so you know, Paul, you're still watching me. Bitch, you're a fan. Just come on up.
And told me to get the front seat.
But in a separate interview recorded by Sheriff's Detective Melissa Turnage, the tone turned confrontational.
If you're mad because you got your phone taken away, let's say that now and be done with it.
From the get-go, she was rude. Simple terms, rude. When she continuously asked me the same question over and over, I almost told her she should probably write down what I'm saying because I didn't feel like she was listening.
See, and that's, you know, again, and this is something I should probably say more often. Children, before they're destroyed, they have a certain natural intuition and instinct. If that isn't altered or isn't allowed to be destroyed, that's what brings in the competence. Again, remember, this is a very young girl. And she showed more competence than every adult in her life. Pathetic.
Turnage treated Taylor less like a victim and more like a suspect.
Do you want to go live back in foster care? Because more than likely, if he's arrested, they're not going to let you stay there. But if it's not the truth, you're fixing to hurt a lot of people.
Everything I told you earlier is not a lie.
Still, Turnage concluded that Taylor made it up. The detective wrote that she couldn't find Henry Cadle on gas station security footage buying condoms like Taylor said he had. And she couldn't pinpoint the location of the assault on that long stretch of road.
Every interview that we talked, she made me out to be a liar. And I told her time and time and time and time again that I am not the liar here.
There is no excuse for the manner in which this case was handled.
Jerry Seitz, a forensic expert who's worked with thousands of child abuse cases, listened to the interviews between Turnage and Taylor. She says Turnage's techniques were inappropriate, especially because very few children, less than 4%, fabricate stories of sexual abuse.
Less than 4% of children fabricate sexual abuse. I don't know that that statistic actually holds true. I think it's a little bit greater one sense or another. I never believe the statistics. I go by my intuition, my instincts, and my reality. And, you know, it seems to be more prevalent today, and mostly coming from women, slinging these accusations about sexual abuse. And it seems to be prevalently through this welfare system, again, that foster care and adoption system and all that false patronymical daddy that'll take care of mama and all of her babies and tell the men to fuck off. You're on your own. And while you're on your own, you ain't got any offensive actions you can take because you're going to be too busy defending yourself from our offense, because we're going to make you pay. This is a pathetic system. And again, it's only because I was a bitch-ass fool. I was a slave. I've done it. And I had to come to the realization of my own errors and learn how to man up and say, hey, I got to understand what this patriot shit is for what it is and know the difference. We have to get over this insanity of making these false accusations to support some damn record that is a narcissistic history of the victors over the victims.
But kids with traumatic histories are less likely to be believed.
Kids who have that history of adversity are the perfect victim because their offender knows they're not going to be as credible because they've had this difficult life.
There's no way with the details that I gave or the things that I said or certain locations that I could have fabricated that big of a story. There was no way.
Instead of Henry Cadle going to court, 13-year-old Taylor faced a judge for a charge of lying to police. She had no lawyer, only her adoptive mother, Henry Cadle's wife.
I walked into that courtroom.
So essentially what they were saying is, since we can't prove your allegations, we have to say that you're lying and we're going to charge you for it. It's called covering their ass. And somehow they just don't get it. It's not really covering your ass. It's called being a fucking heathen liar.
Scared out of my mind. And my mom.
Hitler's willing executioner, as you might say. As I've said many times. I think that's slowly what we're turning into. Some kind of big indoctrination concentration camp. What do you think they wanted to put the border walls up for?
Mom told me in the car to just plead guilty and get it over with.
She was sentenced to 1 year of probation with community service. She also had to write 2 apology letters, one to her abuser and the other to a sheriff's office.
See, that's that psychological abuse. That's that enslavement mentality saying you will do what we say, whether you like it or not, because if you don't, we're just going to lock you up. Fuck you. You ain't my daddy. Lock me up all you want.
officer. Taylor's experience is like hundreds.
I will never apologize for truth, not once. Like I've said many times, truth needs no defense. Why would I apologize for it, therefore? That's fucking insane.
Hundreds of sexual assault cases I found nationwide as part of a years-long investigation into police charging alleged victims with lying. Due to privacy laws, I could find only a handful involving children. One as young.
There's the index.
Throughout, there was a pattern of police missing crucial steps in investigations. But Taylor's case is unique because she vindicated herself.
See, that's that thing, John, the index. That's the identification index. No matter where you look at it, whether it be a Congress, military index, a local tax index, residential index, no matter what index it is, a phone book or anything, even your own private list, it's an identification index. That identification is a mix of numbers and letters. Oops.
Well, last time I checked, I wasn't a melon or a squash. I mean, I thought identification was only for goods.
Well, yeah, but you're an animal.
Okay.
According to their definition, right?
Yeah, well, that makes sense too. That's why I got branded, burnt on the ass.
Well, and that's why I ask everybody, are you a man? And most, well, first I got to ask them if they're a Christian. Okay. Most often that's my general response is yes. And if that's the response, then I can ask them a second question. That second question is, are you a man? And when they tell me yes, I know that they're either a false Christian or a misled Christian, an unknowing Christian, a blind faith Christian, or something like that, because Genesis 2:7 says, and it's plain English, God formed man of the dust of the ground, and when he breathed the breath of life into his nostrils, man became a living soul. Now, man is a noun, and a living soul is an adjective, meaning it's verbal, meaning it has motion. It's reality. The noun means it's a description of the reality. That's it. I cannot be that person. I cannot be that man. I cannot be the description. I am the thing.
Interesting.
On-call phone rang, and it was the on-call supervisor for my unit.
Joel Dempsey was the detective assigned to the case when Taylor called the police to report she was sexually assaulted again.
There was a previous investigation that the victim was on probation for, and then I also learned that new evidence would prove that some of the victim's statements were true.
Using her cell phone, 13-year-old Taylor made sure she got bulletproof evidence this time.
She had taken some photographs with her phone. She also took pictures of an empty condom box, as well as the clock on the vehicle, and then a short video of what appears to be the suspect walking around the truck.
This is the exact phone that I used in the 2017 case. I pulled up the camera, and on this specific phone, if you just tap the screen anywhere, it just takes a picture. So in my head, I was like basically kind of like swiping, but in reality, I was taking pictures of everything that was happening.
Just like last time, she detailed the abuse to a child welfare worker, but with one big difference.
Everything that they didn't find evidence for last time, I kind of tried to make sure that it was there this time, just so that way my story would get believed.
So she had pictures, actual video of the surrounding area that they could go and travel along that road and specifically find. And that's pertinent. That validates a large portion of her situation as being true and correct, that she did not state otherwise, and the video correlates it.
The photos she took with her phone were graphic.
So it was very shocking to see that, very sad, but a fantastic thing that she was able to collect it.
In Henry Cadle's recorded statement to Dempsey, he was adamant he was innocent.
I got the impression that because of the previous investigation and the result of it, that he felt somewhat secure.
But I want to ask you plainly, did you touch her?
No, hell no.
Now's the time to tell me. So I can get out in front of it. We can try to handle, figure out what's going on.
No. Nothing happened.
At 4:30 a.m., the detective...
Everyone I've ever known that was in a situation like that, namely P.I.G.S.C.U.N.T.S, having done my time in prison and jail, every last one of them denied it. Ain't none of these evil motherfuckers will admit it. And again, it will always be a system where the victim is victimized as a criminal. It's sickening. We're the only ones that can stop it. This young lady's doing a great job, and I hope she's a great leader in this front one day, showing people how to stand up intellectually, using reason and logic. I'm amazed that her emotional state isn't fucking skewed. This is a strong young woman.
Detective confronted Henry Cadle with the evidence.
Hey, Henry. You wanted to see what I got here? The pictures?
Sure.
See this?
Okay. Okay.
You know who that is?
Yeah.
Who?
It's me.
Henry Cadle was sentenced to 17 years in prison for sexual battery of a minor. Taylor's criminal charge was overturned.
I don't remember any other case where
17 years. See, that's just wild to me. What is 17 years confined going to do? What kind of programs are available to those people in those prisons and institutions? What is it that's going to change their logic and reason above their emotional self-need for gratification? Particularly a style of gratification that preempts to specifics like gender and youth or age or whatnot. I don't think it's there, folks.
where the victim had the forethought or the intelligence.
Welcome back, Russ. Greetings, Richard. How you guys doing?
Peace and respect, El Perro. Here's my first thought, and I'll be silent for quite some time. The reason this man almost got away with this, and why some do, is because we are socially, mentally aware that there are women making false accusations. And so if they think it's a victimless crime, or if they think they're only hurting their ex-husband they want rid of, or ex-boyfriend they want rid of, they're hurting women too.
Absolutely. I agree. Yeah, there's so many things that are skewing things today, and a large part of it is this, and call me misogynist if you want, but this feminist movement that's putting more and more women into places that they shouldn't be. And that was because of the specific intent of the beta cut corporate males that were missing their lovely wives at home and wanted women in the workplace with them. It's sick. And men, it's our fault.
It is sick. I don't know if I'm still lagging or not here, Keith, but about to jump out if we're not going to get a good connection.
I think you sound fine here.
Oh, okay. It's what you were saying earlier. It's interesting how these people, even in these positions, how they use their particularly agencies that they're in, supposedly doing good works, as terrorist organizations, and use
Yeah.
the resources of those agencies to actually victimize people in like.
Yeah, and that's
I recent word of a case going on up in Bucks County that I got involved in the other day. Reached out to the judge, and lo and behold, I get a phone call from the police department threatening me with terroristic threats, popping off addresses and all kinds of shit.
what'd you do? Go to city council?
No, I emailed the judge, and then I called. Well, it gets interesting. I don't want to take up too much time on your panel here, but you remember when they cattle herded me back in the court back in 2019, and the body cam footage got that judge saying not a record, not a court of record before he cut it off. I guess since I sent that copy of that footage to the judge and said, "Tell me this isn't human trafficking." But anyway, I reached out to another judge the other day, and I just called to verify they got the email because I never got a response. So she said, "No, we didn't get one." It was a different judge, by the way. He said, "No, we didn't get an email." And I said, "Well, let me send a test." So I sent a test from a different email. Sure shit, it went. So they've had, Bucks County's had my email blocked up there, so it's probably 2019. So it's interesting. So then they put Warwick Township Police Department on me, calling me, threatening me on the phone. Didn't do them no good. They're all running scared now and don't want to answer their goddamn phones up there. But I'm sick and tired of all these cupcakes out in these public agencies. I'm tired of calling it. You can threaten me all day long.
Yeah. Well, you
Bring
got
your
my
happy
number.
ass on.
Yeah. Well, you got my number, so call me if you need. I know. They tried to get Melvin Washington for terroristic threats too.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So it's just a matter of no.
Yeah. Well, he told me not to call. He said, yeah. He said you call back over there, email the judge one more time. There will be charges and started popping off an address and yada yada yada. And boy, I didn't take that too kindly. I kind of lost my cool a little bit with him. And I spoke to the sergeant, and they kind of follow suit. Then I reached out to the chief of police, and he's a bitch. He won't answer his emails or anything either. And they just want to run and hide, use the agency's resources to victimize the community, and they can't do it with somebody like.
Yeah, and they're using their position of public service and public trust to try to prevent you from reaching out to your uplines, and that's a First Amendment violation there to not allow a remedy for your Fourth Amendment and Fifth Amendment violations. So anyway, let's get back to finish this one up.
Yeah, I sent them nice emails, and then I sent the township managers and all of them, connected them all with the email, and yep.
Absolutely, keep that electronic communication, guys. Now that's like a court of record. Okay, your electronic communications is mirroring the court of record. Coin your words or purse your lips. Make sure that everything you put into it, you're doing it with good intent, and you're willing to stand up to fulfill an obligation if you make an error, omission, or mistake.
To collect their own evidence and to be so thorough. Just unbelievable amount of presence.
But little deal talking a little bit on some of this.
Absolutely.
Showed.
I reached out to Detective Melissa Turnage and her boss, Grady Judd, multiple times to ask for an interview. Turnage never responded, and Judd's office declined an interview and didn't answer repeated requests for comment.
Where was a person for Taylor? Where was a person to stand up to say stop and stop it now?
And that's why that's one of the things that intrigues me about this video, because we're talking about Grady Judd and his efforts through the federal implementations of the crime task force and Disneyland and all them trafficking rings he's been dealing with, and why it happened, why this particular instance is happening in his. He would be the one that I would think would take authoritative action over that and say, no, you're going to do a proper investigation. I think he would have at least stepped up, and maybe it's because he didn't know about it or something. I don't know, but he would have certainly, in my mind, seemed to be like the guy that would step up and say, no, 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 you're not going to file charges against her because you can't prove the case, because that's obviously what happened here.
Since 2002, Florida State Senator Lauren Book has been working on state bills aimed at protecting victims of child abuse. She sent a letter to the sheriff's office requesting they look into how the system failed Taylor the first time around.
It happened to Taylor, and Taylor is enough to fix the system.
Senator Book says charging Taylor and letting her be assaulted again was entirely preventable, and properly trained professionals should have intervened.
And that's the terror of it. See, not only they charged her for supposedly lying instead of trying their very best to prevent it, which is their priority when it comes to children. And therefore, by their very actions, they enforced the opportunity to happen again. That is the sick part about it, folks. This is why we have to have that oversight.
At multiple levels.
You need to have people who are properly trained and who are in it to do the right thing and really walk a survivor through this process.
And not just for a paycheck. Again, this is that Hitler's willing executioner that we see all the time when they will blatantly tell you, ma'am, I'm just doing my job. Ma'am, you need to do more than your job. This has a moral problem. And you're involved in it. You're one of the ones allowing it to happen. The evil shit happens only because of good people refusing to do anything about it. Hitler's willing executioners. And again, I'm sorry for my passion, but from firsthand experience, I think I have a lot to say about a lot of the things I go over when it comes to these police activities and stuff.
I'm personally glad for righteous passions.
Absolutely, we have to have it. This is otherwise people would be walking around blindly with opaque faces. We wouldn't have emotions. We wouldn't have that freedom of expression. Should be glorifying it.
About being trauma informed and what that approach means.
Jerry Seitz trains investigators and law enforcement officers on how to help children who come forward with allegations of sexual abuse. She believes this is what could prevent a detective from doing this to another child like Taylor.
Certainly, forensic interviewing has just really made a huge difference in child abuse cases, having people who are highly trained and understand linguistics and child development and how to approach kids so that they can gather accurate information in a neutral, supportive way.
Now a mom of two, Taylor is healing by giving her children the kind of safety she never had. She says she never received an apology from authorities, but hopes
she proved her case. And after having to go through what she went through and write 2 apology letters, she has not received any apology. How out of kilter is this? How honorable are these people that even when you do prove it, they refuse to do what is honorable and even make an apology? That's blatant and obvious that they have no intent to repent and that they know what they are doing is wrong. They're full-grown adults. Go ahead, brother.
Not knowing this case, who was fired?
Exactly. I don't know that anybody was.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
See, that's the sick part, isn't it? Nothing changes except the people it really affects, and that's the victims. The history is going to remain the same. It's always going to be the narcissistic view of the victor over a victim.
They use the lessons from her case going forward.
I want for them to understand what they did and to clearly see where they messed up, to truly
They already know
see
it.
what happened
They already know it. Otherwise, they'd have given her an apology.
and fix it. Because no child should ever have to go through anything that I went through.
For the PBS NewsHour and the Center for Investigative Reporting, I'm Rachel DeLeon.
I think it's a reminder, again, I hope to impress anyway, that we as people have to take upon the full benefit and the true benefit of knowledge. This goes to both rightly dividing the word of truth, and no tongue shall prosper against you, and you shall rise up against any tongue that places judgment. This means we have to know those tongues. We have to learn the languages. We have to see this stuff for what it is. We have to see the people in their actions for what they are, because their actions are a language is separate from their words in voice or on paper, or in their dreams, or in reality. Their actions will always speak louder. And so when you sit there and watch them doing nothing for you and then say, I'm just doing my job, you know they're telling you the truth. Anybody on that? Anybody got an opinion, statement, anything? I mean, what do you see?
I agree. I find it in some way just disgusting that they're I don't know how you would do it, almost their judgment upon that girl to write those apology letters. And then when they knew, it's just like that, then their refusal to do their judgment, that was their judgment.
Yeah.
And then they failed their own judgment.
Yeah, people are cowards in the most basic sense. And this is why I did the Hitler mustache, as everybody likes to call it. It's actually a toothbrush mustache, and many people wore that mustache in life, including people like, who is it? Fred Christ Trump? Yeah, Fred Christ Trump. Trump's daddy or grandfather, whichever it was. There was a senior and a junior, I believe, and they were both named Fred Christ Trump, junior and senior. So he had two people in his life that used the middle name Christ for crying out loud, heaven forbid. And then you have Hitler who wore it, and then you have Charlie Chaplin who wore it before Hitler did, and Hitler wore it because he was a fan of Charlie Chaplin. So what is the significance of the Hitler mustache that everybody wants to call it a Hitler mustache without recognizing the rest of the history about it? They want to use an ad hominem as a sling of some kind of a weapon so they can sling it at you. So when I put this Hitler mustache on, you know, the only ones that ever said anything about it are the people on the internet and the metaverse that couldn't reach out and touch nothing. So what they had to say about it had zero value. And what the people in reality had to say about it was zero. They didn't say a fucking word about it. So they too had zero value. See, that was my little social experiment.
So who out of everybody actually did you find had value then?
The ones that got triggered by it. And the only way they expose that they are triggered by it is in a metaverse where they don't have any consequences. If they are triggered by it in public and they say something in public, they might most certainly have consequences. The reality of life standards versus your commercial standards of the terminology you use in this freedom of speech platform that says you can't say certain things. So let me tell you again, by freedom of expression, I will get my shaver right here and I will shave it off again. Do I need to say more? Or can I verbalize it in a different form? See, the platforms we speak on and how we speak is what we need to discern. We need to learn the tongues so we can master them. See, that thing about serving two masters? You're not serving two masters if you master something yourself in the service of the master who taught you. That's where we're supposed to get the knowledge. Instinctual intuition of our natural observances of what is true before us, and that we can mimic image and likeness. Why do we always have to sling something from our imagination as if though projecting that it's something else upon someone else? Don't you see the fallacy in that? It has zero value. That's why when people come up here, Paul came up here earlier. Where is it? He says, Paul Unslaved, come back to your daddy and own the truth. I'm right here on Paul Jr. Open invitation, open link to come up and join the panel while he runs his mouth and letting me live rent-free in his head and won't come up on panel. So who's the coward? Swing your ad hominem somewhere else. It doesn't matter. You're the one that shows you're still a fan, bitch, because you're still watching me.
That's funny. I don't even find you scary.
Exactly.
Passionate,
What the fuck?
but
I say let the spirit shine, do the work.
That's what he's scared of.
That's a little odd.
He doesn't know that the reality of some people he can't use his projections on. Come up, Paul. Try to sling your projections of how my life is a failure because me and my companion disrespect each other. That's the greatest test in life. You'll never be perfect. You will go around life disrespecting people without even knowing it. No one's going to perfect it. So, the insanity again is because we think that somebody else has authority and we live in that imposed fear. It's our own imposed fear.
Yeah, we give up authority to others, and that's not always a great decision.
Yeah.
I think that we almost in some way we're required to disrespect people because it's just like you can't respect in that aspect of going, okay, they could apologize to that girl and prove their self-worth, that they were going to face their own judgment that they placed upon somebody else. But then in some things, it's like you have to disrespect that way that they treated her that way. You have to, in turn, disrespect them to show them that they're not honorable in their own judgment.
Well, I don't know that it's so much a disrespect because I see it more in that tough love, hard love thing that if I'm running around with my brother's sitting in the car next to me, I'm traveling down the road, he's out there flipping people off and I get my ass beat for it. It's not a matter of disrespecting him by telling him to shut his fucking mouth and keep his fucking hand in the window. It's a matter of respecting him because otherwise I'm going to throw him out and they can beat his ass up.
I agree. Respecting people is telling them the truth in love, even truths they don't want to hear.
Yep. We have to realize, and let me tell you, I'll use the shovel incident as a realization that I'm trying to point out here. There's a story that I tell about how I hit somebody over the head with a shovel and knocked him out. He ended up on his knees in the middle of the street. Because I don't care. And it goes to the effect that I didn't have the shovel in my hand to begin with. He did. And when he ended up being the one knocked out in the middle of the street, I don't know how it happened. I don't care. All I know, in that moment, I was on instincts and intuition. I didn't need a base of knowledge that somebody else taught me. I had to depend on myself and my own nature. Nobody was there to defend me against him and two other people. So when it comes down to that base foundation of knowledge, I'll never go beyond my intuition and instincts first. I will always place them as priority. And then I will use logic and reason in the material that I'm observing to see if it matches. This is what I call that spiritual connection that I look for in other people. And I don't see it. I think people have lost both their intuition and instincts. What do you guys
learn to
think?
ignore them, or learn to ignore them, or some combination of both. I think that a lot of people societally have learned to ignore what is evidently true internally in observations about the external.
Yeah, and I agree there, and I think that comes from that material interference, that material static of comfort and convenience of modern technology, and we bring it on ourselves.
Well,
we don't harden ourselves. Go ahead.
I think that connection you were talking about, I think that your instinct also has the ability to be controlled by your intellect. So even though you may be acting on instinct first, is somewhere in there connected to your intellect, gives somewhere does that make sense that your instinct can be guided by your intellect?
Correct. And that's what I'm saying is I don't see that in most people. They're using a base knowledge of remembering things without any intellect. And this is another thing you can quote me on. A man's intellect is limited and biased by his vocabulary. So again, like we saw in the video earlier with the 66-year-old woman, they were saying that they knew her. They had already identified her. Their vocabulary proved they were lying to her. It didn't need to go any further than beyond that. She didn't need to know anything about the law. Yet somehow, like Richard says, there's some kind of static in there that she didn't realize it before. She backed the blue until it happened to her. Now she has no faith in him. She understands how it works now. Imagine that. One event.
I truly hold that no matter what large group you speak of, there are going to be bad apples in that bunch. There's also going to be good apples.
Yeah,
there are decent people trying to do the right thing at all times, but it's just not enough of us.
Right. We have to learn how to come together, and that's why we have these panels and stuff. And I can only hope my panel isn't going to be a drama panel of any sort. Like I said, this is Paul Jr., though it comes from a panel verse where there is a lot of drama. The base concept here is Philip Zimbardo, who did the Stanford Prison Project back in the 70s. So it turned out so terribly. It was supposed to be like a 3-month program at first, and they cut it down to 3 weeks. And then even in that, they had to cut it short to 6 days because it had turned tides so drastically that there were egregious violence and humanitarian rights violations.
You could say that it worked so well.
Right. It proved that we shouldn't be studying that other than in the reality and seeing how it is already. We don't need to set up a test example. We should observe what's already happening in those prisons. Yeah. It shows the reality of the human mind and how it takes over in those authoritative positions and will extend beyond their authority to inhumanely treat other people.
Yep.
And that's, and that's why, when you look at the outro and the introduction with the Paul Jr. thing, it's Philip Zimbardo and the Heroic Imagination Project. On this metaverse, we can create our own hero of our imagination. So when I see people come on here, the hero of their imagination is somebody like Hitler when they see me wear that mustache and they call it a Hitler mustache. It tells me their mentality and the hero in their imagination is not quite the hero. Very simple test. But again, it's about learning those tongues, which is just different languages. In body language, sign language, Braille, Go watch the Book of Eli. See what that's about. That's one of the reasons, Book of Eli, that's one of the reasons I want to try to memorize this motherfucking Bible. It has a foundation of knowledge and faith that will supersede every other law. And when other people see you with that, they will automatically not see you, but the power. Again, it's not about me. It's not about Paul Jr. It's not about Paul Unslaved. It's not about El Perro, Keith Little, my mom and dad, or any adoptive parents or anything. It's about the goddamn message. Logic and reason in what we observe in reality. Quit believing. Learn how to do your real research, firsthand experience of the knowledge that you have so you can put it to working exercise and come out with a wisdom. Become wiser. First time you try to ride a bike, you're not very wise in it. After 30 years of particularly specializing in, you're probably wiser in riding a bike than most others. This is the development of our talents as a young child. That's all skewed. So let's look at the next one. This is how skewed it gets. This is a Phoenix. Another one from We the People University. Abaya, Israel. Cops held him down until they cooked him on the hot asphalt pavement in record-breaking temperatures, 114, 115 degrees. Pavement itself is about 160. What temperature do you cook bacon at? Sick. These people have no mentality with any moral ethics whatsoever. I would love to hand out eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth for every one of these motherfuckers that held this man down on that pavement. That would be justice in my eyes. Of course, that's just my opinion, folks.
Over a month in a burn unit with police peeping through the windows to see what he was doing.
If true, that means Phoenix officers knew his condition was bad. And Michael says officers were there for days.
Another one where they're trying to criminalize a victim. Horrendous crimes they committed against this man, and they're trying to criminalize him. Egregious.
And kept him handcuffed. Like, what do you mean they were there?
They were just outside the room. They had like this little like clicker thing that's like a blind
intimidation, and tampering with the witness.
Welcome back to another episode of We the People University, the home of We the People. And today we are taking a look at just guess. Yep. Another Arizona Police Department, the Phoenix Police Department.
And guys, real quick, take a quick commercial break, if you want to call it that. Even though we're not monetized, go ahead and hit that like, share, and subscribe button. There is a PayPal link down there for anybody who wants to share some love. Always appreciated. And I will drop the StreamYard link for anybody else that might want to join.
And this one, this department is getting so bad that now the DOJ is talking about taking over the department. Now it's just talks. I want to see how far this actually goes, but I think, yes, the DOJ definitely needs to step in and do something. Today we have a story where they arrested this guy, and that's not the worst part about this, him being arrested. They arrest people every day. But this guy was arrested in the state of Arizona, mind you, and it was hot, a record-setting hot day. And he was held down on the pavement on a record-setting hot day while his flesh burned as the police kneeled on his back, pressed him against this hot pavement, giving him very, very severe burns. I won't go too far into it right now. I'm just going to play this. Guys, leave your thoughts down below. This was pure torture for this guy. This was torture. I want to know what you guys think about this. And we have to speak out, share this video, because we need to encourage the because sometimes they need a little bit of encouragement that, yes, you need to step in and do something. This cannot continue to happen. Let's check this out.
SPD is under pressure. The DOJ wants to take over that department. The DOJ wants to take over that department. And the city just made national headlines after we exposed officers punching and tasering a man who's deaf.
Tonight, we're back investigating a new case, and we're warning you right off the...
Yep, same department that just tased and punched the daylights out of a deaf man. Just pulled up on him as he was walking across the street, beat the shit out of him. Same place where that sheriff of Paizo or whatever his name has Camp Pink Panties, Maricopa County. This shit's been going on for decades, guys. One of the worst areas in the country, in the world, I would say, in my opinion. That's why I stay away from there.
The bad parts of this story are hard to watch.
This video shows officers on top of a man in the middle of the afternoon, in the middle of the summer, in the middle of a record-breaking heat wave.
That man has not been charged for this.
So there's 4 officers on him right now. 4 officers pinning his entire body down. His cheek, as you can see here, his chest, his shoulders, his arms.
Incident, but he spent more than a month in the hospital with 3rd-degree burns. His attorneys say officers literally cooked him on the blacktop. We blurred the pictures of those burns here, but we're going to show you more of that a little later in this story. Our chief investigator, Dave Biscoping, interviewed that man and also got that surveillance video.
So far, though, we don't have the body camera footage and police reports. That's why Dave is still investigating, and he's here now with the latest.
So far, Phoenix PD has issued a statement saying the case is still under both a criminal and internal investigation. And there's also a pretty significant twist we just discovered that we'll need to break down at the end of this report. What day did this happen?
July 6th.
Okay.
It was like around 2 in the afternoon.
It was pretty hot that day, right? Like 115 or something?
I believe it was breaking record. Yeah.
This is Michael Kenyon, and it was actually 114 on that day. And what happened left him with scars all over his body.
That's sick, folks. That is terrible, inhumane, egregious. If they did that to a prisoner in war, they'd send him to the gulag for life. That's a war crime. But somehow, through an economic program of economic warfare, they get away with it during times of peace on domestic soil.
And I'd like to point out that this is after skin grafts.
Yes. Yes, this
would be a lot worse.
Yes, this is after skin grafts, and they had to graft skin from his legs and shit. Or his back or some shit. I think they go over a little bit of it in here.
Up and down his arms, across his chest, on his legs, with chunks missing from his knees.
Just avoid the mirrors now. Doesn't even care to look.
It happened in a parking lot off 7th Street, just north of downtown. Surveillance video shows Michael on the phone walking to the store. That's when a police SUV pulled up behind him. He says the officers told him to come here. And he did.
I walked up to them and with my phone in the hand and said what happened or what's going on. I don't really remember what I said, but I came back. One officer grabbed my other one wrist, and then the other officer grabbed my other wrist.
Before we go further, here's the backstory. Michael lives in a house close by, practically across the street. And according to Michael, his roommate had just reported a theft from their house. So there was a theft situation going on.
Right. And he just...
It wasn't involving you.
No,
right?
no.
A court record search shows Michael has a hand...
Nope. Again, another situation that was not involving the person that they actually apprehended, arrested, and violated. They're just picking people off the street. Literally.
Handful of misdemeanor cases in Arizona. 3 dismissed, 1 guilty judgment for criminal damage. And on this day, he had an outstanding warrant for a failure to appear. But Michael claims he didn't know he had a warrant. And police confirmed these officers didn't know about it either.
In my mind, I feel like deep down, like...
So in other words, the warrant for failure to appear wasn't known at the time they did this incident. It wasn't known until afterwards, after they identified him, looked him up, found out he had a warrant for failure to appear, and then guess what? That's when they turn around and decide to criminalize him by pressing charges that were supposed to have already been charged or pressed. Or posted, as you might call it.
Like, because I think to myself, like, I had a bad past. I don't deserve a lot of good things in my life. So I'm like, maybe I did deserve this, you know?
That's the background. Now let's get back to what happened. Remember, we don't have body camera video, so we can't hear what's happening.
And then they told me, like, instantly in a like a mean, hostile voice that they were saying, like, you're being detained. And I said, but I'm on the phone. What did I do? I didn't do anything. Please explain to me. And they're like, why are you getting in? See, why are you seem like you're nervous? And I said, I'm not. I'm just, you scared me. Like you told me I'm being detained and I didn't do anything. Can you at least explain to me? I want to sit down. Let me sit down. Like, look, I'm not trying to run. And I sat down on the back of some random person's truck.
I saw that, yeah. About 15 seconds later, Michael stands. The video shows them struggling for about 30 seconds. Then more often.
He stood up in compliance. That wasn't good enough. They will always escalate anytime they want to.
Officers run up and take him down.
They said, give me your arm, stop resisting. And I think that's when, like, 5 people were on me and I'm just screaming for help. I'm scared. I'm thinking, like, this is like the moment when, George Floyd was literally like.
He told us he thought of George Floyd because they were kneeling on his back and neck in addition to the pavement burning his body.
This is it. This is all. This is me. I guess this is where I'm going to stay at. And
this
then,
is the end. You mean?
Yeah, this is the end.
Michael spent more than 4 minutes on the blacktop before getting handcuffed. And
put a piece of bacon in a frying pan at 160 degrees. See what happens, folks. Make sure you heat it up first to 160 degrees, and then put a piece of bacon. Go ahead.
What is that? These people that they can't consciously realize what is going on. It's as if they don't even know.
No, that's what they get off on. Some of these people, though they're indoctrinated, and you have to give them that, it's when we see things like this. No, that's not indoctrination. That's people that get off on this shit. That is something that is so intuitively, objectively true and observable that even a fucking 5-year-old knows you don't walk across a hot parking lot, black asphalt, with barefoot, because he's already experienced it and it burns the fuck out of you.
I almost became a police officer right after I got out of the military. So I'm aware of the cognitive testing, the physical testing, the mental evaluation. And what I'm saying by all that is they know exactly who they're hiring.
Absolutely. They go to that psychological report, and they want people that are malleable. Very malleable. A little bit of power, and you can shape anybody the way you want. Most of them are a bunch of puppets. I'll agree to that.
And picked up and dragged to the police car. He said his skin was already bubbling and peeling away.
His skin was already bubbling and peeling away. Again, I'm telling you, heat a pan up to 160 degrees. Put a piece of bacon in there, cook it for at least 4 minutes. See what you get.
The pain, like, how bad was it?
Like going through hell and Hades, I guess you'd say. It's like,
I'm pretty sure the pictures are enough evidence. I don't have to read this, but to help you further understand how hot the pavement can become, all I did was a simple Google search and listen to what Google stated. In 114-degree weather, pavement, particularly asphalt, can reach temperatures as high as 160 degrees Fahrenheit due to its dark color absorbing a large amount of heat from the sun, often being 40 to 60 degrees hotter than the surrounding air temperature, meaning it can be significantly hotter than the actual air temperature, making it crucial to consider the pavement temperature when walking pets or going barefoot outside on hot days. At such high temperatures, even brief contact with the pavement can cause burns, especially on sensitive skin like a dog's paw. Now, with that being said, just imagine that you're being pressed down on this ground. You have 5, 6, however many officers on your back. It's like, I hate to describe it this way, but I'm trying to paint the picture. I mean, you guys can see it, but flip a burger, use the spatula and press the burger onto the pan or the grill. You're pressing for a reason, because you're trying to get a sear, or you're trying to cook the outside as best as possible. This is literally what these cops did to this man as he cried out in pain as they tortured him. Just keep watching.
Feels like your skin's melting off. The lady across the high-rise said that she thought an animal was dying, so that's why she looked out her window.
Firefighters arrived about 5 minutes after Michael was lifted from the ground.
Well, she did hear an animal dying.
Exactly.
This happened to be a human animal.
I was just going to say, that's exactly what it sounds like.
Hey, yeah, well, I mean, we're animals. We will scream out. Yeah.
I had an oven blow up on me when I was younger, and I was down. I was bent over and trying to light the pilot light with a match.
Yeah.
When it blew, and like I always have, I have long hair, and it blew me across the room and melted the hair to my head like a plastic helmet.
Weird.
My eyelashes were like Velcro because they'd been singed, and every time I wanted to open my eyes, I had to literally open them with my fingers. But on the way to the hospital, because it was such an emergency, a friend took me to the hospital with a bucket of ice water, and I kept dunking my face in this ice water until I got to the hospital. Otherwise, it was just screaming in agony.
Yeah.
It is no fun. It is one of the worst pains you will ever go through. And that was the second time I went through it. First time was when my dad tried to teach me to quit playing with matches when I was 6 years old. So he strapped my fingers to a couple wooden shingles, shoved them in the furnace, and let them shingles burn.
Whoa. A little bit, little crazy on the dad thing there.
Yeah. So, mommy and daddy issues on both sides. I've been through probably 19, 20 different sets of parents. And look where I'm at yet today. This is my family, folks. Here. Even my adoptive family disowned me.
Wow, dude.
They think I'm the crazy one.
Wow.
7 minutes later, he was carted away and taken to the hospital.
The Phoenix police are demonstrating an utter disregard for human life. Sitting next to me is a young man whose skin has been burned to the third degree because it was cooked on asphalt.
You feel like they cooked him on the asphalt?
Oh, they did. There's no doubt.
That's Bobby DiCello, one of Michael's lawyers. They're planning a lawsuit. They gave us the surveillance and cell phone video, but they say they have not been able to get the police reports either.
He had committed no crime in his...
I would actually call that, in modern terms, you can look it up. I believe there's 4th and 5th degree burns, and I would call that probably 4th degree at least. I mean, that literally cooked his skin.
I mean, there's really good reason he's missing the front of his thighs above the kneecap, because there's a large muscle right there in most men, and that would be having full contact, and you wouldn't be able to lift it off the ground. He's missing chunks of deep muscle.
Right. Yeah, it didn't just burn the skin; it burned the flesh.
No. Yeah, it actually killed, significant amount of muscle. Yeah.
Pathetic. And these are the kind of people that think they have authority, and these are the kind of people we put in authority. Again, guys, it's our fault for allowing it. We have to start maintaining the oversight. We have to start using more natural ways of mitigating this stuff before it even happens. And that's not saying lynching people after it. That's before it. We have to quit putting these people in place like this.
Yeah. So if you think the morality of your leadership doesn't matter, I'd say you're wrong.
It matters. It's dependent upon you and your morality. If you think this society is so comfortable and convenient that you can just let anybody in that office and it will continue to work for you, you're one of the ones that will back the blue until it happens to you. You have to start taking that oversight firsthand and foremost above anything else in order to protect yourself. Otherwise, you will find out.
Never been charged with a crime, and he's spent over a month in a burn unit with police peeping through the windows to see what he was doing.
If true, that means Phoenix officers knew his condition was bad. And Michael says officers were there for days and often kept him handcuffed.
Intimidation, tampering with the witness, treason, sedition, attempted murder might be able to go that far.
I mean, they were there. They were just outside the room. They had like this little like.
A reasonable man might know that the consequences of holding another man down on pavement like that could ultimately result in death. Mitigating it or minimizing it to maybe possibly manslaughter. This is egregious.
Like a blind inside the window, and they just wouldn't let me use my phone, contact my family, and it took certain cops to break the rules to let me use my phone.
He says police left after a friend called lawyers, and they showed up at the hospital. Now, Michael was
These are the scars they're willing to put on you physically. The scars that end up there emotionally and psychologically are much deeper, and like these will never go away. I assure you. This, in my aspect, is not a detriment to me, but is one of the things that helps me enforce my passion of hard love, tough love, to let you know the reality before it happens to you.
He says police left after a friend called lawyers, and they showed up at the hospital. Now, Michael was hospitalized for more than a month, first in a special burn unit, then in a rehab facility. He says the beginning was the worst, especially getting his dressings changed.
He just screaming at the top of my lungs, like wishing it was over, you know what I mean? I wouldn't wish it over.
Take a second. You say you wouldn't wish it on your worst enemy?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, I wouldn't.
Did you deserve what happened to you?
I don't think so. And sometimes I beat myself up thinking, like, what could I have done to deserve this? And I still cry sometimes thinking that, like, I didn't do anything.
Do you think anybody deserved what happened to you? Again, Phoenix says this case is still...
See, we do that automatically to ourselves. We automatically think, what did we do to deserve this? And I'll tell you again, I assure you this is so, because that's what I thought when I was a child.
That's indoctrination.
I'll tell you, I agree.
A child never did. You can't have done something wrong in almost complete ignorance with your brain only partially developed. That can't be true. There's
Correct.
no way there's a responsible child. That's why we don't let them vote and drink beer.
And I'll tell you, it instilled in me the mere fact that it became a form of punishment. And I became an arsonist to those that I got angry with. Telling you.
Wow.
The psychological scars are much deeper than you would ever think.
The more I see of the world and how people are indoctrinated, the more I am thankful that my mother was a free thinker and taught us how to think.
Absolutely, and that's the problem.
I'm just more and more impressed.
Yep. I urge people to really rethink this public education system that thinks that the education is to make us remember things instead of think for ourselves. That's the indoctrination. That's the swaying of that young spiritual talent, the disassociation, the distraction, the disposition.
Under criminal and internal investigation. And while the city didn't directly respond to our specific questions about why officers were stationed at the hospital, their statement did say Michael was taken to the hospital, and officers learned he had a felony warrant out for his arrest. Now to that twist we mentioned earlier. We just learned that hours after we reached out for comment on this case, officials went to court and filed criminal charges against Michael Kenyon. Now, not for the burn case, not for the warrant, but for a different case. Now, we just pulled the new court file. It shows 3 charges related to a domestic violence.
Domestic violence with a family member, which works the same way as any other physical assault, in that if that other family member drops charges, those are dropped charges, but the state comes in and picks them up. Again, firsthand knowledge, firsthand experience. Don't let them play those games. So what they're doing here is the exact same thing in presenting a false witness. I gotta let the dogs out. I'm gonna let this do while I do that.
Michael and his brother. Here's the timeline. That alleged DV case happened on March 12th. The burn incident happened in July. We reached out for comment on that burn case October 28th at 6 a.m. The new charges were filed 9 hours later at 3:17 p.m. Michael's attorneys just released the following statement. Quote, "We are still investigating this allegation. The timing of the charges is certainly suspicious, particularly given Phoenix PD's history, but we're reserving judgment until we complete our own investigation." His attorneys also represent the group of protesters who were targeted, arrested, and falsely charged as gang members. So those attorneys have a notable history with the city.
So hopefully you caught that. So they hold the guy down, they burn him, they torture him. Their attorneys are going to file suit. But when the news investigative journalists reach out to Phoenix Police Department, all of a sudden the department files charges against the victim, but not for the warrant that they stated he had, but for some type of domestic violence disagreement that him and his brother had months prior.
Months prior. So the time limit on filing charges is usually 30 days or some shit like that, not months later. Months later would be an investigation, maybe.
My opinion, 2 brothers fighting. Yeah, just charge the other guy for the other guy's hospital bill and be done with it. It's just 2 brothers fighting.
Well, yeah, technically, and that's what the commercial system says. Equal exchange for equal financial instruments. So the losses of each other are covered by each other.
Right.
It's just like a private contract. That's the remedy in common law.
I like that.
People just don't get it.
Now that's called covering your tracks. We don't want to look like we just tortured and beat up an innocent man, causing severe burns all over his body. So let's do this. Let's charge him to make him look like a criminal, and then we can cover our tracks. And that's what they are doing. This now, all you guys like to say, well, Florida, they have the worst cops.
So again, a situation where they are criminalizing their victims. I hope you people are getting this picture. This is why I'm doing these Copalooza things. We'll get back to the rest of the insanity of the Kens, Karens, and transphobics and transformers and all this and transhumans, transgenders, this and that. Transparency, that's what you wanted. Now you're going to end up with a generation of transparents. Think about it.
Or New York, or I don't know. If I had to cast a vote, you know what? I think I put poll up. If I have to cast a vote, I'm voting for Phoenix. The cops in Arizona. Narrow it down even more. Phoenix. Granted, a lot of these departments need to start over.
Worst department in the USA. Maybe I should do a poll on that. Worst department in the USA.
Oh, there could be a worse one we just don't know about.
Yeah. Maybe I should do a poll on that on the community page and see if I can get some responses. That would be interesting.
What troubles about me about all this, El Perro, is what I don't know. Okay, I do know.
Exactly.
But I do know that there's this police department in Phoenix, Arizona that is, I don't know, covering up for each other, allowing the police to get their kicks by torturing citizens who obviously aren't guilty of anything serious, even being accused of anything very serious. But then I wonder if it's more like cockroaches, where you see one, and that means there's 300.
Exactly, and that's what I'm getting at. See, we have this population of what we think to be corruption, and they are in fact, There are, in fact, many people in the system that are, in fact, corrupt. However, that corruption seeps into others through those authoritative arms to people that are willing to sit there and say, I'm just doing my job. So the corruption is, when you see one corrupt official, know that he's got 5 other officials underneath him that are following that corruption. And each one of them has 5 people following them under that corruption. It exponentiates because of the indoctrination. Because nobody really knows what their job is. They're just doing what they're told.
Right? Or even some need to cease to exist. But this department in Arizona, Phoenix, no words. It's, to me, in my opinion, the worst of the worst. This is a tragically sad story. And definitely you do not want to see things like this happen. But it does come back to us. We, as the people, have to stand up and put the pressure on the DOJ. Don't just talk about doing something, actually do it. So we don't see stories like this. Honestly, and I'll end with this. Channels like We the People University and other channels you see across YouTube should not even exist, right? We would have no content if cops were to respect the rights of citizens. If cops actually did their jobs, if academies actually train police officers the way they're supposed to be trained, if the police officers actually knew the laws they were enforcing, if they weren't badge tyrants, these channels would not exist.
And so again, you see, he agrees with me, and or I agree with him. However you want to look at that, in that it comes back to us. It's our responsibility. We're the only ones that can do anything about it. The only way to do anything about that is to have a greater superior knowledge. Again, agreeing with Sun Tzu, the art of war, to defeat one's opponent without fighting is a supreme excellence. And you do that through a greater knowledge. That's where the true power is.
Amen.
What do you guys think on the way out? Give me your train of thought.
Become educated about your local police, your local sheriff's department, and vote.
Okay, I'm just going to say.
Or run for office.
Run for office.
Needs be. Maybe that is what needs to happen.
Go ahead, the following.
I think, and just, I guess, off the cuff, is like I think people should be like concerned about the education of themselves.
Absolutely. I agree. I've said that before. I get disparaged and saddened by the fact that I see so many of our younger generations walking out of high school and never picking up another source of reading material. They're playing video games at the age of 35 still. What the fuck is that? And granted, the internet, I've said, also is the world's greatest library. We have a library at our hands, but yet they don't use it for that purpose. They don't use it for research and knowledge. They use it for their gaming techniques and their marketing and advertising and me. Again, and again, that if you understand the true benefit to be knowledge, the true effect in that is that you gain enough knowledge that you pass it on to your next generation so that they have a good solid foundation where the knowledge is already there and they can then expand upon that so that the next generation's benefit increases.
First step, learn basic Aristotelian logic so you know how to judge things you're presented with, and then start using it and start exposing yourself to new material.
Yep, that's Aristotle.
Yes, sir.
That's Aquinas, Aristotle, and who is the other one? As accordance to natural law and all that. Napolitano did let me pull it up. Napolitano did a video on standing up for your rights. And he mentioned Aquinas, Aristotle, and somebody else.
Well, my main mission is talking about ancient religions, but my second mission in real life is helping people see the value of basic logic.
Right. And that's the premise of positive law in that. is that there's a logic path that shows you that it's positive, that this is objectively true.
Right.
Napolitano, taking rights seriously. And this is a thing he did down at the Mises Institute, and it is it is 59 minutes and 2 seconds long. I'm going to drop the link down in the bottom chat for everybody.
Please do.
And I'll drop it in the back chat for you. And check that out, because he talks about the positive law and natural law, Aristotle, Aquinas. And God damn it, I got to get it sooner or later. It was 3 A's. So anyway, and I've watched it several times. It should have sunk in, but maybe I need another hit. But yeah, greetings, JG. It's a matter of comprehending what in our nature is instincts and intuition that will lead us through that logic path of our observances to show us what's positive and what's negative. What's going on, brother JG?
Well, never mind. You're ending the show.
Well, say what you gotta say. I opened the panel for you so you can say what you gotta say, no matter what it is.
You're a beta cuck.
That I am. All right. Well, if that's all you got, then I'm going to end her here.
I'm coming for you. I'm coming for you, bastard. I hold grudges. I don't forget shit, so I'm coming for you, Wiz. Watch out.
Well, you just let me know when, and I'll be down on the railroad track waiting for you to drop in. All right. With that, we're going to end it. And you guys know me. I love you, but I don't give a rat's ass whether you love me back. That's say I don't care if you hate me. I don't care if you don't respect me. That's on you. So may God bless you and have a good night. Thanks for joining me, everybody. We'll see you next time.